All right, so in the last video, I showed you guys these things. These arrived at the studio, mock-up, but fully functional versions of like a guess at the next iPhone. And they typically come out before the next iPhone comes out. For whatever reason, these things get manufactured, fabricated in China, and they get sold. And usually they're pretty close to what the eventual model will look like based on the rumors and the schematics that are available to case manufacturers in China and so on. They can kind of go out and make these things close to the authentic spec. But in this year's case, I've got some word from some insiders that this is not actually that close. Shortly after filming this video, I received a CNC model of what I'm told is a more accurate representation of the potential next iPhone, the iPhone 11. So just a quick refresh before I get to that. This is an iPhone XS Max, and that's what the current camera module looks like. You can see here with these knockoff clone versions of the potential next iPhone that they just sort of scaled up this camera module that exists on the XS Max from a design perspective with this metallic ridge cutout and also this black glossy backdrop for the camera modules. But I'm being told that that's the part that's wrong. And this one right here, wrapped in a microfiber cloth, this is the CNC model of what that camera implementation is said to actually look like. Now, it's still a square, and I have to say, from my personal preference, it's slightly more appealing, slightly better looking, but maybe most importantly, just more iPhone-esque. This seems more in line with kind of current Apple aesthetic. You can see it doesn't pop off of the phone nearly as much either. It doesn't have as much movement, like as opposed to this here, or even the current model. But the key factor here is that it relies on these much larger circles. It's just less abrasive. It's less popping out. It looks less like an appendage and more like a part of the design. I think this is still going to be polarizing. I think people are still going to call it some sort of arachnid. They're going to be scared of it, as they do with the new iPhone releases regardless. Now that I see them side by side, I can't really tell which one I like better. It's tough to say. This is not a clone. This is not a fully functioning model. This is a one-off, custom-made CNC. I can't turn this on right now, but what I've been told is that this is way closer, if not exactly, how the next version, the iPhone 11, is going to look, and not like those fully functioning clones that you've seen floating around the internet and in the previous video. It's a more matte, anodized looking finish. The vibrate switch over here changed from this elongated format that it's been for a long time to this more iPad-esque circular switch. So this is the other rumor, the other change that doesn't show up on these clone models, but instead does show up on this CNC version, which is said to be closer to an accurate representation of the next iPhone. The SIM tray is a bit lower, and actually the power switch seems a bit lower too. Now, when it comes to accuracy in those departments, I'm a little skeptical myself, but I think the main takeaway here is that this camera implementation is the one you should probably prepare yourself for based on the information that I have access to right now. The other thing I noticed though is on the front of the device, the way these sensors are mapped, face sensors here, including the front-facing camera. If you compare that to the current version here, those holes are slightly larger and more defined. Now, part of that might just be the fact that it's a model. Part of that might be a change in some of the tech there. It might be a change in a front-facing camera. We don't really know. Anyhow, I've been told that this is the closest you're gonna get right now to looking at the iPhone 11, the actual iPhone 11. It's not those clones, but instead it's this thing here. I'm glad, to be honest, that Apple is implementing another camera module. Whether you like the look of it or not, I think it's an important transition because it's become an indispensable feature on other smartphones. So I think it's an area that Apple has to evolve, and it's a hard thing to do. You look at the triple camera implementations that exist on other devices, and like you have something like this. I mean, this is the OnePlus 7 Pro over here. You can go the long way with it, but the reason it seems Apple is always handicapped in that department is they're stuck never wanting to move this giant Apple logo. It's That has to be there. And because of that, you end up with some limitations from a design perspective. And it might just be those very limitations that drove Johnny Ive far, far away.